The sun dipped low in the Portland sky, casting a warm glow over the streets as I walked through the Pearl District. The air was thick with the scent of roasted coffee beans and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the emptiness I felt inside. My husband had long since stopped noticing me, his attention consumed by work and his own pursuits. I had become a fixture in our home, a background character in my own life. The annual Rose Festival was in full swing, vibrant floats paraded through the streets, and laughter echoed from every corner. Yet, amidst all this color and joy, I felt invisible. I watched couples embrace, families share moments of laughter, while I clutched my purse tightly against my side. My heart ached for connection, for someone to see me as more than just a wife or mother. I turned down a side street lined with art galleries and cozy cafes. A local pub caught my eye, its wooden beams and dim lighting promised warmth and intimacy. As I approached the entrance, I paused for a moment. Inside, laughter bubbled up from small groups gathered around tables, sharing stories over craft beers. I hesitated at the door before stepping inside. The atmosphere enveloped me like a warm blanket. I ordered a drink at the bar and found an empty table tucked away in a corner. The bartender smiled kindly as he placed my beer before me. "Enjoy," he said, his voice friendly yet distant. I took a sip and surveyed the room. My gaze fell on a group of young people gathered near the pool table. They were animated and carefree, their energy palpable even from afar. Among them was Jake, my son's best friend, his laughter ringing clear above the others. Jake had always been charming and full of life. He seemed to embody everything that felt lost within me. As he caught my eye across the room, something flickered between us, a spark that hadn't existed before. He smiled warmly at me, that boyish grin igniting an unexpected flutter in my chest. I quickly looked away, heat rushing to my cheeks as guilt washed over me. He was just a kid, a young man barely out of college, and here I was, feeling something that shouldn't be there. Yet as he moved closer to where I sat alone, it was hard to ignore how alive he made me feel. "Hey!" Jake called out casually as he approached my table. "What brings you here?" "Just needed to get out for a bit," I replied softly, surprised by how easy it felt to talk to him. "Good choice," he said with genuine enthusiasm as he settled into the chair across from me. "This place has great beer." We chatted about mundane things, the festival preparations and his plans for summer, but beneath our light conversation lay an undercurrent of something deeper that neither of us dared acknowledge outright. As we spoke, time slipped away unnoticed. Laughter from nearby tables faded into background noise while our connection deepened subtly yet profoundly. For those brief moments together, I felt seen again, like more than just someone's wife or mother but as an individual with desires and dreams long buried beneath years of routine. Then came an unexpected twist when Jake leaned closer across the table, his expression shifting slightly from playful to serious. "You know," he began hesitantly, "my friends sometimes joke about how cool it would be to date older women." A rush of warmth flooded through me at his words, the implication hanging heavily between us like unspoken secrets waiting to be unveiled. Before I could respond or even fully process what he meant by that comment, our conversation was interrupted by my phone buzzing insistently in my pocket, a reminder of reality crashing down upon this fleeting moment of connection. I fished it out reluctantly only to find a text from my husband, "Running late again tonight." Just like that, the invisible threads tying me back into my life tightened painfully around me. "Everything okay?" Jake asked softly as concern flickered across his face. "Yes," I managed to say despite feeling anything but fine at that moment. He nodded but didn't seem convinced. There was an understanding between us, a recognition of loneliness shared even if unspoken aloud. As we resumed our light banter about trivial matters, what food trucks were at the festival or which float would win best design, I couldn't shake off how different this felt compared to conversations with my husband lately, devoid of enthusiasm or interest beyond surface-level exchanges. When it came time for Jake to rejoin his friends by the pool table after promising another round soon enough, I watched him go with an ache settling deep within me, a longing for something more than what had become ordinary in life, a yearning for excitement that seemed so close yet so far away now that it danced tantalizingly just out of reach. With each passing second spent alone at that table, the weight of choices loomed larger. Could one night change everything? Could this fleeting connection lead somewhere meaningful? As darkness enveloped Portland outside, the lights from street lamps flickering on like stars against an evening sky, I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps this night might mark the beginning of something new, or merely serve as another reminder of how invisible I'd truly become within my own marriage. The festival lights danced in the cool night air, casting playful shadows on the cobblestone streets. As I walked through the Pearl District, the hum of laughter and music surrounded me, yet I felt a strange detachment from it all. My heart raced as I recalled the moment with my son's friend, a fleeting connection that lingered like a sweet aftertaste. I found myself at a small cafe, sitting alone at a table near the window. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the space, but it did little to ease the turmoil inside me. A part of me wanted to forget about everything, the mundane routine of marriage, the indifference of my husband, but another part clung to guilt like an unwelcome guest. How could I even entertain thoughts of pursuing something with someone so much younger? The doors swung open, and there he was, my son's friend. He stepped inside, shaking off the rain from his jacket. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. A smile broke across his face, and for a moment, it felt as though I were seen for the first time in years. "Hey. Fancy seeing you here," he said, sliding into the seat across from me without waiting for an invitation. "Just enjoying some coffee," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Mind if I join?" He didn't wait for an answer as he flagged down a barista. We exchanged small talk about college and life plans while sipping our drinks. The conversation flowed easily. It was refreshing to engage with someone who seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. Each laugh we shared chipped away at my reservations. "Have you been to any of the art galleries lately?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. I shook my head. "Not really. Just busy with life." He nodded knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, he shifted topics back to lighter subjects, music festivals and summer plans, his enthusiasm infectious. I found myself laughing more than I had in months. As our conversation deepened, so did my awareness of him, how his eyes sparkled when he talked about his passions and how his voice carried a warmth that felt inviting. For a brief moment, sitting there across from him, I forgot about my responsibilities and my invisible existence at home. Suddenly, he leaned closer, our voices dropped to whispers as if sharing secrets meant only for us. "You know," he said softly, "I've always thought you were really interesting." A rush of heat flooded my cheeks, such words were foreign to me now. "Interesting? Really?" "Yeah." He smiled again, genuine and disarming. "You have this energy that makes people want to talk to you." Before I could respond or deflect with self-deprecating humor, he reached out and touched my hand lightly, a simple gesture that sent shivers down my spine. It was as if electricity coursed between us. In that instant, time seemed suspended around us. Nothing else mattered except this shared moment, the laughter fading into silence as we locked eyes. My heart raced as desire crept in uninvited. Guilt still lingered but felt distant against this newfound thrill. Then it happened, a spontaneous decision driven by an overwhelming need for connection. We kissed. The world around us faded away completely, nothing else existed but this electric spark igniting between us. It was brief yet intense enough to leave me breathless and questioning everything afterward. What had just happened? How could such a simple action unravel years of carefully constructed boundaries? "I shouldn't have done that," I whispered after pulling back slightly. His expression shifted from surprise to understanding. There was no judgment in his eyes, only curiosity mixed with something deeper that made my heart flutter again. "It's okay," he replied gently, his voice barely above a whisper now too. But even as those words hung between us like fragile threads woven together by fate itself, doubt crept back in like an unwelcome fog. What did this mean? Was it simply a fleeting moment fueled by excitement? Or had we crossed an invisible line that would change everything? I glanced around the cafe nervously. What if someone saw us? What if word got back to my husband? The thought twisted uneasily in my stomach like an anchor dragging me down into murky waters. "I should go," I stammered suddenly. Panic surged through me at the idea of being caught up in something so reckless yet intoxicatingly alive. "Wait," he said quickly before I could stand up fully. "Let's not overthink this." But how could we not? This wasn't just some innocent flirtation. It was dangerous territory laden with consequences waiting patiently just beyond our reach. "I can't." My voice trailed off as uncertainty clouded my thoughts again. Guilt clawed at me relentlessly while desire flickered tantalizingly close yet dangerously out of reach all at once. He nodded slowly as if understanding without needing further explanation, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps we both stood on shaky ground now after crossing such boundaries together tonight. As we parted ways outside under dim streetlights illuminating our path ahead, each step felt heavier than before. I couldn't shake off what had just transpired nor how much it stirred something dormant within me longing for attention and validation long denied since marriage began suffocating individuality beneath its weighty expectations. What lay ahead remained uncertain. Would this be merely an adventure lost among fleeting moments or something more profound awakening desires buried deep within? With every heartbeat echoing louder than before, I walked away wondering if perhaps tonight marked not just another night lost among countless others, but rather one where invisible threads began weaving new stories waiting patiently beneath layers upon layers obscured by years gone past. The days that followed were a blur of mixed emotions. Each time I caught a glimpse of him, my heart raced, and I felt that familiar tug of desire. The thrill was intoxicating, but the weight of my marriage loomed like a shadow over every interaction. I found myself replaying our kiss in my mind, each recollection igniting a fire within me that had long been extinguished. One afternoon, while sipping coffee at a local cafe in the Pearl District, I overheard a conversation between two women at the next table. They were discussing the allure of younger men, their laughter punctuating the air like music. "It's not just about age. It's about feeling alive," one said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. The words resonated with me, igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps I could reclaim some part of my identity. As I sat there, pretending to read a book, my thoughts drifted to him, my son's best friend. He had seen me as more than just a mother, he had seen me as a woman. The idea thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. A few days later, during dinner at home with my husband and son, an innocuous comment from my son sent chills down my spine. "You know, Jake really admires older women," he said casually while reaching for the mashed potatoes. My fork clattered against my plate as I froze mid-bite. The room felt suddenly smaller. "Older women?" My husband glanced up from his plate, eyebrows raised in curiosity. "Yeah," my son continued nonchalantly. "He thinks they're more interesting." I could hardly breathe as I processed what this meant. Did Jake truly admire me? Or was it merely youthful infatuation? My heart raced at the thought of being desired by someone so vibrant and full of life. After dinner, I found myself alone in the living room while my husband retreated to his study with his laptop. The silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. My thoughts swirled until they landed on Jake's face, the way his eyes sparkled when he laughed and how he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. I picked up my phone and hesitated before dialing his number. Would it be foolish to reach out? What if he didn't feel the same way anymore? But before doubt could take hold, I pressed call. "Hey." His voice was warm and inviting when he answered. "Hi, it's me." What's up? I hesitated again, searching for words that wouldn't betray too much vulnerability. I was wondering if you wanted to hang out sometime? Sure. When? Maybe this weekend? I'd love that. As we chatted casually about our plans for Saturday, a sense of exhilaration washed over me. This would be another chance to explore what had begun between us, a chance to understand whether there was something deeper than just fleeting moments shared under the festival lights. Saturday arrived with an electric buzz in the air. We decided to meet at a local pub known for its craft beers and cozy atmosphere, a perfect backdrop for our rendezvous where shadows danced under dim lighting. When Jake walked in, dressed casually yet effortlessly handsome, my heart skipped a beat. He greeted me with an easy smile that made everything else fade away. The noise of other patrons disappeared into oblivion as we settled into our own little world. We talked about everything, our favorite books, music preferences, and every shared laugh brought us closer together. As we sipped our drinks, I felt an undeniable chemistry crackling between us like static electricity before a storm. Then came that moment when our conversation faltered, silence enveloped us like an unspoken agreement hanging heavily in the air. Our eyes locked, his gaze searching mine for permission or assurance, and suddenly it felt as though time stood still. Our lips met softly at first, a tentative brush that ignited sparks between us once more, before deepening into something more urgent and passionate as we lost ourselves in each other's embrace right there in that dimly lit corner of the pub. Reality rushed back as quickly as it had faded away. Guilt crashed over me like icy water after warmth from his kiss faded against my skin. What were we doing? This couldn't be just about physical attraction. There were consequences lurking behind every decision made now. We pulled apart slowly, breathless yet uncertain about how far we'd crossed into dangerous territory together. A territory filled with implications that could unravel everything if discovered by anyone who knew us both well enough to piece together this tangled web we'd woven so quickly. I shouldn't have done that, I murmured softly while avoiding his gaze now fixed on the table between us instead of meeting mine again directly after such an intimate moment shared only moments before. Jake reached across the table and took my hand gently, his warmth contrasting against my sudden chill from uncertainty swirling inside me like leaves caught in autumn winds outside beyond those walls separating us from reality beyond this bubble we'd created here tonight together alone together amidst all these strangers surrounding us still unaware. It felt right, he replied quietly but firmly, his voice steady despite everything else swirling around us threatening disruption outside these four walls keeping secrets hidden so far away from prying eyes watching closely nearby. But did it feel right? Or was it simply an escape from loneliness gnawing at both our hearts desperately searching for validation somewhere amid this chaos? As we left the pub later on, the cool night air wrapping around us, I couldn't shake off feelings swirling within. Excitement tangled tightly alongside fear gripping tightly around every thought racing through mind now questioning everything leading up until this point where invisible threads began weaving new stories waiting patiently beneath layers obscured by years gone past. What would happen next? Would this lead somewhere meaningful or simply serve as another fleeting moment lost among countless others fading into memory over time? The uncertainty loomed large above me now like storm clouds gathering overhead threatening rain any moment waiting patiently just beyond horizon waiting patiently. The rain began to pour heavily, rhythmic drumming against the roof of the small pub where we had sought refuge. The atmosphere inside was warm, contrasting sharply with the tempest outside. I could barely hear the chatter of other patrons over the sound of the storm, yet it felt oddly intimate, as if we were cocooned in our own world. He looked at me, eyes bright with a mix of mischief and something deeper. The flickering candlelight cast shadows across his face, highlighting his youthful features. I was acutely aware of how different he was from my husband, how alive he made me feel. "Do you think it will ever stop?" he asked, glancing out the window where sheets of rain blurred the view. "Eventually," I replied, though I wasn't sure. The storm mirrored my own inner turmoil, a chaotic blend of desire and guilt swirling together. As we sat together in that cozy corner, I couldn't help but reflect on how this moment had come to be. Just days before, I had been lost in a haze of indifference at home. Now here I was, sharing stolen glances and quiet laughter with my son's best friend. The weight of my marriage loomed large in my mind like a dark cloud threatening to overshadow this newfound light. My husband's indifference had pushed me into this affair, yet here was someone who saw me, not just as a mother or a wife but as a woman deserving of attention and affection. "Do you ever think about what happens next?" he asked suddenly, breaking through my thoughts. "What do you mean?" Us." He leaned closer, his voice low enough that only I could hear him over the storm's roar. "What if it becomes something more?" A shiver ran down my spine at the thought. Could it? Was I ready for that? The thrill of possibility danced dangerously close to reality. "I don't know," I admitted softly, feeling vulnerable under his gaze. The rain intensified outside, creating an almost surreal backdrop to our conversation. It felt like nature itself was urging us to confront our feelings amid this chaos. "We could just stay here," he suggested playfully, "until the world stops spinning." I chuckled lightly but felt a flutter of anxiety in my stomach. Staying here meant facing what lay beyond our little bubble, the responsibilities and expectations that awaited me at home. But then again, wasn't this what I craved? An escape from reality, even if just for a fleeting moment? As if reading my thoughts, he reached across the table and took my hand in his. The warmth of his touch sent sparks through me, an electric connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "Let's not think about anything else tonight," he said earnestly. I nodded slowly. It seemed easier to surrender to this moment than to wrestle with what it might mean later on. The hours slipped by as we talked and laughed under the dim lights of the pub. The storm raged outside while we created our own little sanctuary filled with shared secrets and unspoken desires. Eventually, as night deepened around us and the pub began to empty out, an unspoken understanding settled between us, an acknowledgement that we were teetering on the edge of something profound yet perilous. "I should probably head home soon," I said reluctantly as I glanced at my watch. "Stay," he urged softly but firmly. I hesitated, weighing my options against the growing pull toward him, a pull that felt magnetic yet fraught with consequences. But deep down, there was an undeniable yearning for connection that drowned out every rational thought. "Okay," I whispered finally. We spent the night together, wrapped up in each other's warmth as thunder rolled outside like an ominous reminder of reality waiting for us both beyond these walls. In those hours filled with laughter and whispered confessions beneath blankets borrowed from an old couch in a back room of the pub, time lost all meaning. Yet even amidst our shared intimacy lay an undercurrent of fear. What would happen when dawn broke? Would this night remain just an escape or evolve into something more complicated? As morning light crept through dusty windows illuminating our makeshift refuge, reality began seeping back into focus. The weighty responsibilities waiting for me at home pressed heavily on my chest again like leaden chains pulling me down into despair. I watched him sleep beside me, his features softened by slumber, and wondered how long it would be before our worlds collided once again in ways neither of us could control or predict. Would our secret remain safe hidden away from prying eyes? Or would it unravel before we even had a chance to understand its implications fully? Suddenly there was noise from outside, the sound of familiar voices drifting through open windows mixed with laughter echoing down empty streets still damp from last night's deluge. My heart raced at recognizing one voice among them, my son's laughter ringing clear above all others, a stark reminder that normalcy awaited me just beyond these walls where everything felt so beautifully uncomplicated yet impossibly fragile at once. I turned back towards him, still lost in dreams, unaware. Regret mingled with longing surged within me as doubts crept forward like shadows threatening to consume everything we had shared overnight. The thrill now tinged with uncertainty about what lay ahead when confronted by reality once more. Would this be merely another fleeting moment lost among countless others fading into memory over time? Or could it transform into something real despite all odds stacked against us? Before I could ponder further or find any answers within myself, the door swung open abruptly revealing two figures silhouetted against morning light, a sudden intrusion shattering our cocooned world like glass fracturing under pressure. The figures in the doorway came into focus, revealing my son, Jake, and his best friend, Ethan. Their laughter echoed in the small space, a stark reminder of the life I had been trying to escape. The warmth of our shared moments faded as reality rushed back in like a cold wave. I felt exposed, caught between two worlds, the familiarity of my home and the thrilling uncertainty of what lay beyond it. "Mom, we're heading out for breakfast. You should join us," Jake suggested, his enthusiasm palpable. Ethan glanced at me with a smile that held unspoken promises. "Yeah, it's on me," he added, his tone light yet charged. I hesitated, torn between the desire to maintain my role as a mother and the pull of my secret with Ethan. "I'll just grab a quick cup of coffee," I replied, hoping to deflect their invitation without raising suspicion. As they left, I felt a pang of guilt mixed with relief. The space they left behind was heavy with unacknowledged tension. I returned to the kitchen, pouring myself another cup while wrestling with thoughts of Ethan. Our connection felt real yet fragile, a delicate thread woven through the fabric of my life that threatened to unravel at any moment. Later that day, while sorting through old photo albums in an attempt to distract myself from spiraling thoughts, I stumbled upon pictures from when Jake was young, smiling faces at birthday parties and family vacations. Each snapshot reminded me of the woman I once was before feeling invisible in my marriage. My husband's indifference had cast a long shadow over those memories. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, an unexpected text from Ethan. "Can we talk? Need to clear something up." My heart raced at the thought of what he might say. Had our stolen moments been too reckless? Was he beginning to regret our choices? I quickly typed back, "Sure." "When?" He replied almost instantly, "Meet me at the local pub tonight?" The pub was familiar territory. Wooden beams and craft beers created an atmosphere that felt both comforting and dangerous now. It was where we had first shared our secret kiss and where everything began to shift for me. As night fell over Portland, I found myself standing outside the pub's entrance, hesitating for just a moment before pushing through the heavy door. Inside, laughter mingled with clinking glasses and low conversations filled the air like music. The dim lighting cast shadows across Ethan's face as he spotted me from across the room. "Hey," he greeted softly when I reached him at our usual corner table. "Hey," I responded, feeling an electric charge between us as we settled into our seats. "Thanks for coming," he said while fiddling with his beer bottle nervously. "What's on your mind?" My voice came out steadier than I felt inside. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "I've been thinking about everything, about us." His gaze locked onto mine with intensity that made my heart race again. A knot formed in my stomach as anticipation mingled with dread. "And? I don't want this to just be a fling," he confessed quietly but firmly. "I see you differently than anyone else does." My pulse quickened. Those words were intoxicating yet terrifying all at once. But before I could respond or fully process his declaration, Jake walked into the pub unexpectedly. "Mom." He waved enthusiastically before spotting Ethan beside me and suddenly pausing mid-step. Confusion washed over his face as he took in our proximity. "Jake," I exclaimed, trying to mask my surprise and panic. "What are you doing here?" He looked between us suspiciously. Ethan quickly interjected with a casualness that didn't quite mask his discomfort. "Just catching up." Jake narrowed his eyes slightly but shrugged it off as he approached our table more cautiously now. "Okay, well, we were going to grab some food nearby if you want to join." No thanks, I said too quickly. Anxiety buzzed beneath my skin like static electricity threatening to spark out of control. Ethan shot me an uncertain glance while Jake continued talking about plans for later in the week, a game night with friends, and how excited he was about it all. But all I could focus on was how close we were to being discovered, a secret teetering on the edge of exposure and vulnerability. After Jake left again, still oblivious, I turned back toward Ethan, who wore an expression caught somewhere between concern and frustration. "This is getting complicated," he murmured under his breath as if wrestling with thoughts too big for words alone. "I know," I replied quietly but firmly. Uncertainty loomed like dark clouds overhead threatening rain at any moment. "I can't keep doing this if it means hiding from your son." His voice dropped lower, tension crackled around us like electricity waiting to strike. The implications sank deep into my chest, fear clawed its way up from within me. What would happen if Jake ever found out? Would he resent both of us? Would it ruin everything? "I'm not asking you to hide forever," I whispered back urgently, desperation laced through each word as reality crashed down upon us both like waves crashing against jagged rocks, cruel yet beautiful all at once. We shared another charged moment filled only by silence until finally breaking apart under pressure, my heart pounding against my ribcage like wild drums echoing through empty halls longing for connection while shadows danced around us reminding me how precariously close we stood teetering above secrets begging for release. Just then Jake's voice rang out again from across the room where he stood laughing with friends, a sound so innocent yet laden with implications that sent shivers down my spine reminding me how fragile this entire situation truly was. Could this ever work without consequences? Or would we be forced into making choices neither one of us wanted? As doubts crept deeper into my mind like vines choking out sunlight, I realized something important. Keeping this secret might mean sacrificing everything else. The life built around love slowly fading away beneath layers upon layers of hidden truths waiting desperately for someone brave enough to uncover them. The weight of my choices hung heavily in the air, a tangible presence that pressed against my chest. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of our breakfast, a half-empty coffee pot and a few crumbs on the table. My husband sat across from me, his gaze focused on the newspaper, unaware of the turmoil swirling inside me. He had been more attentive lately, asking questions about my day and sharing tidbits from his own life. It felt strange, almost foreign. "Are you going to the festival this weekend?" he asked casually, folding the paper with a practiced ease. I glanced up sharply, surprised at his interest. "I hadn't thought about it." "You should go," he continued, his tone encouraging. "It might be good for you to get out." A small part of me wanted to scream that I had been getting out, just not in ways he could imagine. But instead, I nodded and forced a smile. "Maybe I will." As I washed the dishes, my mind drifted back to him, my son's best friend. The way he looked at me made me feel alive in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Yet now, with my husband showing signs of renewed interest, I felt caught in a web of conflicting emotions. Later that afternoon, I decided to take a walk through the Pearl District. The vibrant art galleries and bustling coffee shops provided a welcome distraction from my thoughts. But as I strolled past familiar storefronts, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned down an alleyway lined with colorful murals when I spotted him, my son's friend, leaning against a brick wall with an easy smile on his face. My heart raced at the sight of him, it felt like an electric charge coursing through my veins. "Hey," he said casually as if we hadn't shared something profound just days before. "Hi," I replied breathlessly. He pushed off from the wall and stepped closer. "You look good." "Thanks." My cheeks flushed under his gaze. "Are you busy?" he asked, glancing around as if ensuring we were alone. "No," I said quickly, suddenly aware of how much I craved this moment, the thrill of being seen again. "Let's grab a drink," he suggested. The local pub was just around the corner, a cozy spot where wooden beams framed intimate conversations beneath dim lighting. As we settled into our seats at a secluded table in the back, I felt both exhilarated and terrified by what this encounter could mean for us. "I've missed you," he confessed softly after taking a sip of his beer. "Missed me?" The words hung between us like an unspoken promise. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "You know what I mean." A rush of warmth enveloped me as memories flooded back, the way he touched my arm during our last encounter or how our lips met in that stolen kiss under stormy skies. But now there was something different in his eyes, a depth that hinted at feelings beyond mere attraction. We need to be careful," I stammered, glancing around to ensure no one overheard us. He sighed but didn't pull away. "Why? Because of your husband?" His words struck deep, they cut through any pretense of control I thought I had over this situation. "It's complicated." "I don't want it to be complicated." His intensity sent shivers down my spine as if daring me to acknowledge what lay between us fully. The moment hung suspended in time until reality crashed back into focus when I heard voices approaching from outside, the familiar laughter of young men mingling with boisterous conversation about plans for the festival ahead. My heart sank. It was then that dread washed over me like cold water on hot skin. "I can't do this here." Panic surged within me as thoughts raced through my mind. What if someone saw us? What if my son walked by? He reached out and touched my hand gently, warmth radiated from his fingers into mine. "Let's go somewhere else then." Before I could respond, two figures entered the pub, my son and one of his friends, laughter trailing behind them like confetti in their wake. My stomach twisted painfully as they approached our table without noticing us yet, their carefree demeanor starkly contrasted with the weighty atmosphere surrounding me. "What are you doing here?" my son asked innocently as they took seats nearby. I forced myself to act casual while internally panicking about how close we were sitting together, the two worlds colliding dangerously close once again without any warning or preparation for impact. "We just ran into each other," my friend said smoothly before taking another sip from his drink, masking whatever tension lingered beneath surface-level pleasantries with practiced ease. My heart raced as they engaged in conversation. Every laugh seemed louder than necessary while every glance exchanged between us felt laden with unspoken words begging for release, but not here. Not now when everything could unravel so easily if anyone dared look too closely at what lay beneath our innocent facades. Then came an unexpected twist, a sudden shift in energy when my son leaned toward his friend conspiratorially and mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "You know, Jake has a crush on older women." My breath caught in my throat as realization dawned upon me like an unwelcome guest crashing through an open door. How did he know? What had been said? My friend stiffened slightly beside me but recovered quickly enough not to draw suspicion. However, panic surged anew within me. What would happen if this secret slipped further? Would it reach my husband? The laughter faded into silence between us as tension thickened like fog rolling over Portland streets. Every heartbeat echoed louder than before until finally breaking free when Jake turned back toward our table with raised eyebrows questioning why we were so quiet all of a sudden. "We should go." My voice came out firmer than intended even though uncertainty gnawed at its edges like moths feasting on fabric worn thin over time. It was time to escape before anything else unraveled beyond repair. As we stood up together amidst casual farewells exchanged between friends lingering nearby, I could feel eyes upon us watching closely, tracing lines drawn too close together, threatening exposure beneath layers built carefully over years spent hiding behind masks crafted out of duty rather than desire. Once outside under gray skies threatening rain once more, I turned toward him desperately searching for answers only to find confusion reflected back instead. Uncertainty clung heavily around both our shoulders like shadows refusing release from daylight. "What do we do now?" His voice trembled slightly, betraying deeper feelings stirring just below surface-level bravado masked by youthful charm meant only for fleeting moments shared away from prying eyes watching closely, waiting for mistakes made along paths chosen recklessly without regard. I don't know. And perhaps that was true, but even so, it didn't change anything between us nor erase consequences looming ominously overhead, waiting patiently, readying themselves for inevitable confrontations soon approaching. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. Each day felt like a tightrope walk, balancing between the life I had built and the one I craved. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with unspoken words and hidden desires. My husband's newfound interest in reconnecting was disorienting. It felt like a cruel twist of fate, just as I was beginning to explore a different path. That evening, I found myself at the local pub in the Pearl District, nursing a drink while staring into the amber depths of my glass. The wooden beams overhead seemed to echo with laughter and conversations around me, but I felt isolated within my thoughts. The dim lighting cast soft shadows across the room, mirroring the murky waters of my own heart. "Are you okay?" came a familiar voice from behind me. It was my son's friend. His presence ignited a flicker of warmth amidst my cold uncertainty. I turned to face him, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Just thinking." "About what?" He settled onto the stool beside me, his youthful energy contrasting sharply with my heavy heart. "Life," I replied vaguely, unsure how to articulate the chaos swirling within me. He studied me for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly. "You know you can talk to me about anything." A part of me wanted to pour out all my fears and doubts, the suffocating feeling of invisibility in my marriage, the thrill and guilt that accompanied our secret moments together. But another part held back, wary of crossing an invisible line that might unravel everything. "I appreciate that," I said instead, trying to keep things light. He leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "I've been thinking about what you said last time we were together, about wanting more from life." I swallowed hard. Memories of our stolen moments flooded back, the kisses shared under the stormy sky and whispers exchanged in the dark corners of my mind. "It's complicated." "Complicated is just another word for interesting," he replied with a playful grin that sent an unexpected rush through me. I hesitated before responding. "What if interesting leads to trouble?" His expression shifted slightly, a hint of seriousness creeping into his eyes. "Sometimes trouble is worth it." The bar buzzed around us, laughter erupted from nearby tables while music played softly in the background. Yet here we were, two people caught in an intricate dance between desire and consequence. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, a message from my husband, *, "Can we talk tonight?" "I miss you, *. The simplicity of those words sent a shiver down my spine. A wave of guilt washed over me as I glanced at my companion beside me. "I have to go," I said abruptly, standing up before he could respond. "Wait," he called after me, concern etched on his face. "Is everything okay?" I forced myself to meet his gaze for one last moment before turning away. "Yeah, just need some air." The streets outside felt colder than usual as I walked home through Portland's vibrant yet indifferent nightscape, flashes of neon lights illuminating sidewalks filled with life while I felt utterly disconnected from it all. My heart raced with conflicting emotions, each step echoed like thunder in my ears. When I arrived home, silence enveloped me like a shroud. My husband was waiting in our dimly lit living room, an anxious look on his face as he paced slightly by the window. "There you are," he said softly when he saw me enter. "Sorry for being late." My voice sounded distant even to myself as I moved further inside. He gestured toward the couch invitingly but remained standing himself, a physical barrier between us that mirrored our emotional distance. "We need to talk about us." The weight of those words hung heavily in the air. They felt both ominous and necessary at once. "What do you want to discuss?" I've been thinking about how we've drifted apart. His gaze dropped to his hands before returning to mine with renewed determination. I want us back, the way we used to be. A familiar ache stirred within me, memories flooded back, moments filled with laughter and shared dreams now overshadowed by years of neglect and indifference. But there was something else lurking beneath those memories, a thrill that had awakened something deep inside since meeting his friend. I don't know if we can go back, I admitted cautiously. His expression shifted, disappointment flickered across his features before he masked it with resolve. Why not? We can work on this together. Before I could respond, he continued, I want you to feel loved again. Those words struck deeper than intended, they resonated painfully against everything else brewing within me, the excitement mixed with guilt regarding someone else who saw beyond mere routine and expected roles. I'm not sure what love feels like anymore, slipped out before I could stop myself, a momentary truth that hung between us like an uninvited guest at dinner. He took a step closer then paused again as if weighing every word carefully before speaking again. What if we try something new? A fresh start? My heart raced at this unexpected proposition, hope mingled dangerously with fear. The possibility opening doors previously sealed shut but also raising questions about loyalty and commitment far beyond mere attraction or desire for validation from youthfulness embodied by another man entirely different than him. Just then, like thunder crashing through clouds, my son entered unexpectedly through the front door without warning, a casual smile plastered across his face until it faltered upon seeing us both standing there frozen mid-conversation, two worlds colliding violently within seconds. What's going on? He asked cautiously, glancing between us, searching for answers only silence could provide. Caught off guard by this unforeseen interruption, I stood paralyzed, unable even utter any explanation while dread seeped into every corner where once there had been comfort or familiarity. In that moment, I knew choices made would resonate far beyond just ourselves. It would ripple outwards, affecting lives intertwined even more intricately than imagined. The silence that hung in the air was palpable, thick with unspoken truths and the weight of choices made. My son's eyes, wide with disbelief, searched mine for answers that I couldn't provide. His words echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the precariousness of my situation. Mom, you can't be serious. He's my best friend. I wished I could disappear, to become invisible once more, but the reality was that I stood there, exposed and vulnerable. The warmth I had felt in the company of his friend now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the gravity of my son's reaction. My heart raced as I considered the implications of this revelation, not just for me but for everyone involved. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, frustration lacing his voice. You've been acting different lately. Caught between the desire to defend my choices and the instinct to protect him from this tangled web, I struggled to find words. The truth was too complicated to unravel in a single conversation. I didn't want to hurt you, I managed to say, the admission tasting bitter on my tongue. His gaze softened for just a moment before it hardened again. You're hurting me more now. The pain in his voice cut deeper than any confrontation with my husband ever could. In that instant, clarity pierced through the fog surrounding my thoughts. This wasn't just about me, it was about him too. His trust and his friendship were at stake. My heart sank as I realized how selfishly I had acted, driven by a longing for validation that had clouded my judgment. Mom, he said slowly, as if weighing his next words carefully. What if Dad finds out? The thought sent chills down my spine. My husband's indifference had created a void I thought could only be filled by someone else's attention. But now it seemed like I was risking everything, my marriage and my relationship with my son, for fleeting moments of connection. I don't know, I replied softly, feeling small under the weight of his gaze. Suddenly, the door swung open behind us with a creak that echoed through the hallway like an ominous bell tolling for what might come next. My husband stepped inside, his expression shifting from casual curiosity to confusion as he took in our tense standoff. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing between us as if we were pieces on a chessboard he couldn't quite understand. "Dad," my son began hesitantly but faltered under his father's penetrating stare. I felt time stretch as tension thickened in the air. This was it, the moment everything could unravel or somehow mend itself before our eyes. "I think we need to talk," I said finally, surprising even myself with how steady my voice sounded. My husband crossed his arms defensively but nodded slowly. There was no ignoring what loomed over us now. "Okay," he replied cautiously. We moved into the living room where sunlight streamed through large windows but felt cold against my skin, an ironic contrast to how warm and inviting it once had been during simpler times. As we settled into our seats, my son beside me and my husband across, I sensed an unspoken agreement among us. This conversation would change everything. "I've been seeing someone," I began carefully, feeling each word hang heavily between us like an anchor threatening to drag us all down into dark waters. My son flinched at this admission while his father remained still, a statue carved from stone, as if bracing for impact yet unsure where it would land. "Who?" My husband's voice held an edge of disbelief mixed with something deeper, hurt? Anger? It was impossible to tell. "Your friend," I said quietly but firmly enough that both men heard me clearly. The silence that followed felt endless. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to pause in shock at what had just been revealed. My heart raced while dread coiled tightly around it like a vice grip. I braced myself for whatever would come next. "Are you serious?" My son's voice cracked slightly as he processed this new reality. Betrayal lingered heavy in every syllable spoken aloud. "I didn't want you to find out like this," I murmured regretfully. Shame washed over me like ice water cascading down skin exposed too long under harsh sunlight. "You should have told me," he shouted suddenly, the raw emotions spilling forth uncontrollably as though breaking free from chains binding him tight against something far worse than mere disappointment, betrayal itself. "I know." A wave of desperation surged within me, a plea for understanding amidst chaos erupting around us, but all three of us were caught up now in swirling emotions threatening to drown out reason entirely. As tension mounted further still between father and son, their relationship strained beyond recognition, I caught sight of something shifting behind my husband's eyes, realization dawning upon him about how deep these invisible threads ran through our lives, entangled together yet pulled apart by secrets long kept hidden away beneath layers built over years spent avoiding confrontations rather than facing them head-on directly, together instead. Then came another twist. The doorbell rang unexpectedly, piercing through our standoff like thunderclap echoing across darkened skies above Portland, outside waiting patiently beyond walls enclosing us here within this moment suspended forever still. My heart raced anew at what it could mean. Who could possibly be visiting at such an hour? Would it bring more complications? More revelations? With uncertainty hanging thickly around us like fog rolling into city streets below, I glanced nervously towards both men seated before me, wondering if anyone dared move forward past this impasse created amidst tangled emotions laid bare now painfully exposed. But still no one stirred. We remained frozen within confines created by choices made leading up until now, a crossroads looming ahead where paths diverged sharply into unknown territories fraught with risks yet untold consequences waiting eagerly just beyond reach.